Centuries ago, before the world had been touched by modern civilization, the heavens had aligned in a rare celestial event. A prophecy was born that foretold the coming of an entity known as the Dawnbringer, a figure who would bring either destruction or salvation to the earth. The ancient texts warned that when the world was on the brink of collapse, the Dawnbringer would emerge from the ashes of the past, either to ignite a new dawn or to plunge the world into eternal night. Mara, a young woman from a forgotten kingdom, had grown up hearing stories of this prophecy. Though many dismissed it as mere folklore, she had always felt a deep connection to the old myths. Her village, isolated in the dense forests, had been largely untouched by the wars and conflicts that raged across the world. But even in this peaceful haven, Mara's heart was uneasy. She knew the world was shifting, and the ancient warnings were starting to feel too real. It was on the eve of her 18th birthday that Mara encountered a stranger. A man, dressed in a cloak of midnight blue, arrived at the gates of her village. His eyes were dark, almost as if they could see into the depths of her soul. He told her his name was Elias and that he had come to find her. "You are the Dawnbringer," he said, his voice steady and grave. "The time has come." Mara stared at him, her heart racing. She had always suspected there was more to her destiny than she had been told, but to hear it spoken so plainly left her breathless. Despite her initial shock, Mara could not ignore the pull she felt toward Elias. She had spent her life in a small village, far from the chaos of the outside world, and yet Elias spoke with such certainty that something deep within her knew he was right. The world was changing, and she could no longer remain hidden. With a heavy heart, Mara packed her belongings and left the only life she had known. Elias guided her, taking her through forests, over mountains, and across vast plains. As they journeyed, Elias explained the gravity of her role. She was not just a figure of hope, but also of destruction. The prophecy had foreseen two paths, one of light and one of shadow, and the choices she made would tip the scales. Along the way, Mara saw signs of the world's deterioration. Villages burned, cities fell into chaos, and creatures once thought to be myths began to roam freely. Something was disturbing the natural order, and Mara knew that it was somehow tied to the prophecy. "The darkness is spreading," Elias said one evening, his eyes scanning the horizon. "It grows stronger every day. We must find the source before it's too late." Mara nodded silently, feeling the weight of her future pressing down on her. She could no longer turn away from the truth. The fate of the world rested in her hands. As the days passed, Mara and Elias continued their journey, reaching the heart of the kingdom where the ancient temple of the gods was said to lie. The temple had been hidden for centuries, its entrance guarded by both time and magic. It was here that Mara would learn the true nature of her destiny. But when they arrived, they were not alone. A dark figure stood at the entrance of the temple, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The figure was shrouded in shadow, its form indistinct, but Mara could feel the malevolent presence radiating from it. "Welcome, Dawnbringer," the figure spoke, its voice a low whisper that seemed to vibrate in the air. "I have been waiting for you." Mara's heart skipped a beat. The figure was no stranger. It was the embodiment of the shadow that had been creeping across the world. This was the darkness foretold in the prophecy. "I am here to offer you a choice," the figure continued. "Join me, and I will grant you the power to rule this world. Together, we can reshape it in our image. Reject me, and you will never know true power." Mara felt a surge of anger and fear. The figure's words were tempting, and yet something deep within her resisted. Elias stepped forward, his hand resting on Mara's shoulder. "Don't listen to him," he said, his voice firm. "The darkness promises power, but it brings nothing but ruin. You must choose the path of light." The shadow figure laughed, a sound that sent chills down Mara's spine. "You think the light will save you? It is the light that blinds, that destroys. Join me, and you will see the truth." Ignoring the shadow's call, Mara stepped forward, her heart heavy but resolute. She could feel the power of the temple pulling at her, the ancient magic that had once sealed the world in balance now beginning to unravel. The temple was alive, its walls alive with whispers of ancient gods and forgotten rituals. Elias led her to the heart of the temple, where a massive stone altar stood. Atop the altar was a glowing stone, radiating with a brilliant light. It was the source, the key to unlocking the power of the prophecy. As Mara approached the altar, the stone began to pulse with energy. The air thickened, and the earth trembled beneath her feet. She could hear the voices of the gods calling to her, their words indistinct but filled with urgency. "Only you can restore balance," Elias said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You must make your choice, Mara. The light or the shadow." Mara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. She knew that once she chose, there would be no turning back. With trembling hands, Mara reached for the glowing stone. The moment her fingers touched its surface, a flood of visions surged through her mind. She saw the world as it was meant to be, a place of peace and harmony, where light and dark coexisted in balance. But she also saw a vision of destruction, a world swallowed by shadows, ruled by chaos. The temple around her began to shake violently, and the shadow figure appeared once again, this time at the center of the altar. His form solidified, and Mara could see his true shape, a dark god, born of the ancient chaos that once threatened to consume the world. "You are weak," the figure sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "Choose me, and you will have the power to create a world where darkness reigns. The light is fragile and fleeting, only through darkness can true power be achieved." Mara felt her heart race. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. She closed her eyes, recalling the lessons of light her grandmother had taught her. Light wasn't about power, it was about hope, renewal, and the ability to endure. "I choose the light," Mara declared, her voice steady, her hand gripping the stone. The temple erupted in a burst of energy. Light and shadow collided in a violent clash, filling the air with a blinding brilliance. The world trembled as the power of the gods was unleashed. As Mara held the glowing stone, the surge of energy enveloped her. The light within her grew stronger, pushing against the darkness. The walls of the temple crumbled, and the ground beneath her feet cracked. The shadow figure roared in fury, his form flickering as if the light itself was burning him away. "You cannot defeat me," he shouted, his voice filled with rage and desperation. "I am the darkness that has always existed. I am inevitable." But Mara's resolve only grew stronger. The stone in her hand pulsed with power, and she felt the light within her align with the energies of the universe. The gods had chosen her, and the time had come to restore balance. The light engulfed the temple, and for a moment, everything went silent. When the light receded, the shadow was gone, and the temple lay in ruins. But the world outside was no longer under the grip of the shadow. The light had prevailed. Mara stood, her body glowing faintly, the weight of the world lifted from her shoulders. The power of the prophecy had been fulfilled, and the world was safe once again. But her journey had only just begun. As the temple collapsed, Mara collapsed to her knees, drained by the immense power she had unleashed. The seeker, who had been watching from the shadows, stepped forward, his face unreadable. He had been by her side throughout this entire journey, guiding her through the darkest moments, but now, even he seemed to hesitate. "You've done it," he said quietly. "The world is safe. But at what cost?" Mara looked down at her hands, which were still glowing faintly with the light of the prophecy. She had won, but she could feel the toll it had taken on her body and soul. The power within her had been too great, and now she felt hollow, as if part of her had been torn away. "I never imagined it would be like this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought I could do it without losing myself." The seeker knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've given the world a second chance, but the price is your own. You have become the guardian of the light, the one who will keep the balance." Mara nodded, understanding. She had made the ultimate sacrifice, and now she was bound to the very light she had wielded. She would never be the same. But the world would live on, and that was all that mattered. In the days that followed, Mara watched as the world slowly began to heal. The skies cleared, and the sun rose higher than it had in years. The darkness that had once covered the earth was gone, and life began to return to the cities and villages that had been ravaged by the shadow. People spoke of the mysterious woman who had saved the world, but few knew her true story. They only knew that she had sacrificed everything to restore the balance. Mara traveled across the land, watching as the world blossomed once again. She visited the villages she had once called home, seeing the faces of those she had fought to protect. There were still remnants of the darkness left behind, whispers of the past that would never fully fade. But for the first time in her life, Mara felt a sense of peace. The Seeker, now revealed to be a former guardian of the light, had left her to carry on the legacy alone. He had fulfilled his part, guiding her to her destiny, but now Mara was the one who would protect the balance between light and dark. She had become the new guardian, the protector of the world's fragile peace. Years passed, and Mara's role as the guardian of the light grew more complex. She could no longer walk among the people as she once had. Her powers, while a blessing to the world, had come at a great cost. She was bound to the light, unable to fully live the life she had once imagined. Though she had been instrumental in saving the world, the burden of her duty weighed heavily on her heart. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but it had not come without sacrifice. She could never be truly free. One evening, as Mara stood on a hill overlooking the land she had saved, a familiar figure appeared. It was Elias, the Seeker. His presence was comforting, but also filled with sadness. "You have done what no one else could," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "The world is safe, but I know the price you've paid. You're alone, Mara." Mara sighed, her eyes distant. "I was meant to be the Dawnbringer, the one who brought balance. But now, I am the last of my kind, bound to this eternal duty." Elias stepped closer, his gaze steady. "But you're not alone. You have given everything, and in doing so, you have changed the world. The light will always guide you, even in your solitude." Mara looked up at the stars, knowing that her destiny was forever intertwined with the fate of the world. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but her journey was far from over. She was the guardian now, forever watching, forever protecting, but never truly free. As the years passed, Mara's legend spread across the world. Songs were sung of the woman who had saved the earth from darkness. People built shrines in her honor, and temples were erected to worship the light that she had restored. But despite her legacy, Mara remained a solitary figure, her heart bound to the duty she had taken on. She had given everything to ensure the survival of the world, and in doing so, had lost the life she once dreamed of. One day, as the sun set on the horizon, Mara stood at the top of a mountain, looking down on the peaceful world below. The light had returned, but so had the shadows. The balance was delicate, and she knew it would always be. But for the first time in many years, Mara smiled. The world was at peace, and that was enough. Her story had become a legend, but she was content knowing that the light would continue to guide those who came after her. She had fulfilled the prophecy, and in doing so, had given the world the gift of a new beginning.